A member of a Crip gang out of Texas by the name of Capone is drunk one night at Leavenworth, and the two of us see each other in the breezeway. Approaching him, he had a big smile on his face. He said some few words to me. We were joking. The next thing you know, pow! I get smacked in the face. Hello, welcome to Convict Inc. I am your host, Robert Rosso, or should I say, hola, señor and señoritas. Mi name, Roberto Rosso. Just kidding. Anyway, so I was last week, I think, after doing a story about Junior Gotti that set the Gotti gurus and mob fanboys on fire. There was a bunch of comments and somebody said, tell the truth about yourself, Rob. Tell the truth who you were in prison. Why don't you say any negative stuff about you? In the comment, I showed him that in the past, I had a cellmate who called me a bitch and I did nothing because my family was visiting that weekend. And then there was a story of Tractor Tom who burned me for some dope and I did nothing about it when I first got to Leavenworth. And then there was something else as well. Well, this story falls right in that line. I was talking to a friend of mine from a large Crip gang out of California. Shout out Rolling 60s. I will not say his name. And we were talking about different stuff. We talk regularly. And he was bringing up a story to put on YouTube, or talking about something that I could have put on YouTube, and I pointed out that I had already talked about it in the past. And I said, you remember the day that Capone smacked me in the mouth? And he's like, what? And then he was like, oh yeah, I forgot. And I said, I'm getting ready to do a video about that. And here's what happened. So in 1998, September, I entered Lewisburg. And let me tell you, at the time that I entered Lewisburg, I had served time in the Arkansas Department of Corrections, Cummins, for less than 60 days, which is the big unit down there. That's the big prison. Then Calico Rock, which is a soft joint. The LA County Jail System, and Chino, Institution for Men. Chino, at the time, I went to CIM, which was the level 1-2 yard. I was in Madrone Hall, which was Chino Central, for 7 months, locked down. Then they sent me over to basically Camp Snoopy at the time. But here I am, 28 years old, fresh life sentence, enter Leavenworth, and the world inside of federal prison and prison politics and white politics is totally, totally different. Total different animal. Now, prior to this, I had been into a couple fights in prison, but by no means was I hanging out and playing in all the reindeer games, as I like to say. I was not trying to be a part of any group. And as a matter of fact, I will tell you, in California, I was one of the guys that kind of stayed out of the way. Yes, I did some drugs there, but I hung out with the Friends of the Jewish Fellowship, who were all drug users, and that was the common bond between us, not the Jew thing. But I did not hang out with the fellas, okay? In Arkansas, pretty much the same, I guess. There was a violation, I guess, is when I really got in on it. But here's what I'm trying to say. It is true that the person I am today, or the person who I was in prison here recently, or the person I became in prison over the years, totally different than from when I started. The mannerisms I have right here is the way I was in prison. No different. You can criticize me and say all kinds of things. You're soft, you're a fag, blah, blah, blah. People say it all the time. You move too much when you talk. I do. I noticed that on last night when I went back and watched last night's live too. I do. I move all over the place. I really do, but whatever. But who I am on here is who I was in prison. I was actually pretty passive on a lot of things, you know. That's not necessarily a good quality to have, but I tried to avoid conflict a lot, still do, in my real life. But, and this is an instance that falls in that line. So here's what happens. There's a guy named Capone who was a very, very dark-skinned black dude out of Texas. I just remember because he was black. Capone had a Jerry curl at the time. Did he have a Jerry curl? I think it was. By the way, white guys. How many white guys that went to prison had to go to the commissary and order a Jerry curl? Or Jerry curl kit. Jerry curl, that's what it was, right? G curl, Jerry curl. Had to order a kit. Man, you remember the way that people looked at you at commissary when you went and did that? They either said, dope fiend, you old black man of debt, whatever. It was embarrassing to go buy a Jerry curl kit for a black guy. And I bought many, trust me. But Capone thought he was pretty fly for a black guy. He was cool. He was out of Texas, lived in Lower. And we were, our mutual bond, me and Capone, was actually wine. He liked to drink. And so, I knew the white guys that pulled down batches of shine. He knew the black guys. So it's not like we hung out and drank together, but definitely when we were getting wine and stuff, Capone would come ask me, I would ask him. There was a night that he was drinking. I don't remember if I was or not, but he was drinking and he was lit up. He didn't usually get sloppy drunk or out of control, but he was actually having a good time, laughing, but he was drunk, okay? I was upstairs, this is in Lower on the second tier, and there's a breezeway in between the blocks. So the cell block is like longer than a football field. It's huge, right? But in the middle of it, there's a break, there's a breezeway, which you go around to either side of the unit. And I was on the odd side, so it would be if you're walking in, it'd be the left side of the tier. And he was on the right side, and we were coming. And what happened was, I was in the breezeway, I just take a turn, and boom, I run into Capone. And he's laughing. He's like, man, what's up? And he like pushes me, and I kind of push back, and he clicked all of a sudden. And he said something about fucking white boy or something like that. I was not a member of the Dirty White Boys at this time. Hung around them for sure. But he said something about, damn white boy, fucking white boy, put hands on me. I forgot what was said. But the next thing you know, bam, he blasted me right here in the face. Now, when I say blasted, it was a very soft hit. And I'm not trying to downplay it. It was a hit that, it just kind of took me off guard. There was no blood or swollen lip, whatever. But he hit me, and then, he was trying to go again. The dude he was with, and I forgot which one it was, and I've tried to remember, he grabbed him like, stop. And it's like, what's up? You want to go or something like that? And dude, I was so shocked because it literally went from him laughing and pushing off on me. And when I pushed back, it was like he saw red. Actually, he saw white. Like, how dare a white boy do this to me? That's what went on through his mind. Let's call it what it is. And he was drunk, and another dude, so the dude stopped him. Another one of his friends came. He's like, man, Rob, I forgot, do you want to go? Or I forgot the situation. But anyway, I was taken aback. I was kind of shocked. And I'm like, no, it's cool. Now, the dudes he was with thought I was like, okay, it's cool, and I'm going to go get reinforcements and go jump on him. Or, so they were thinking, is it cool? Again, I wasn't some tough guy. I wasn't some guy where they're like, damn, man, he punched Rob and Rob's going to go do something. It was nothing like that whatsoever. They were just this is a black guy who just tagged a white guy in the chin checked, whatever. Yeah, chin check would be the proper term. Just chin checked me, and that can cause serious problems. What I didn't go to the white dudes. There was a friend of mine, rolling 60s, and he's asked me not to say his name, but I went to him, and he's like, Capone did what? Now, he was surprised because me and Capone were friends, man. Again, we didn't hang out with each other and stuff, but for all intents and purposes in prison, we were cool. He came to my cell at times. We talked, we kicked it, showed some photos of each other. Not super close, but yeah, we were drinking buddies more than anything, right? At times. So I went to my dude and I said, what happened? He said, oh no. He said, that can't happen. He says, man, I'm gonna handle it. And I said, listen, dude, in other words, man, and I said, the dude's drunk. And he said, don't matter. So he went to a dude named Love out of California. Shout out, Love. Damn, I forgot what tip Love was in. Oh man, I wanted to say it too. I just asked yesterday too. But shout out to Love. People that were in Leavenworth, they know Love. He has a reputation, or had a reputation. good, solid, great guy. Fell out of Tennessee on a dope case. Had life too, I believe. I believe he had life like all the rest of us, lifers that have since been released. But great guy. But Love, who was ever running it was running it, whatever. My dude went to Love and said, Love. Love came and he asked me what happened. He told me, he says, man, he says, no, he's got to get violated. I don't remember the term he used. And I told him, no. And he's like, are you sure, Rob? Really, Love was like, looking at me like, dude, this can look bad on you. That's the feeling I got. I'm like, man, listen, this dude is drunk. I'm telling you, you know, and he's like, if that's the way you want to do it, all right, you know, otherwise we'll fuck him up right now. We'll get him out of here. That's exactly what Love said, you know, because this, again, doesn't matter. It was me, any white guy that a black guy puts hands on being drunk is at the very least going to get violated by his own people, if not run up top, because this can cause a big racial problem. And the truth is I was running with some of the fellas in the block or whatever, you know what I mean? But I said no, and the next day, here comes Capone, and he was worried that his people were gonna hurt him. You know, he was worried that he was getting ready to get his ass whooped by his people. And I mean, this dude apologized to me over and over and over again. And I said, you know, you were drunk. Now, here's what I will say. I meant it. And I knew he was drunk. And like I said, it wasn't like I had a fat lip or had to walk around with a black eye and said, dude, this, you know, like black dudes, if a white dude's gonna jump on a black dude and a black dude gets whooped, there can be problems. It's like that dude, Fat Dixon, I did a story about. Fat Dixon ended up getting his ass smashed after he lost to a white dude, you know? So people take that kind of personal. Black guys take it personal when a white guy wins. And white guys, probably not as personal as black dudes, but white guys still, you know, if for sure you're gonna go through it, you know, if you don't do something about it. But anyway, I held nothing back. I told my people and everything. And like I said, it really was not a big hit, but nothing was done about it. But here's what happened. Capone and I end up in the hole again. We were both in and out of the hole often, but there was a time when he had some wine, but he wouldn't come off of it because he needed money. And I was known in prison, and I've said this many times, I paid my bills, but I was known as slow pay. If you're gonna give stuff to me, when I ran bills, 500 was a minimum bill every month. Was a minimum bill every month, 500. And that's being conservative about it, okay? So I lived large, I did. I had money when I came in, I had family and people that sent me money. So that's the truth, okay? Later on, I hustled a lot for, 5 years at Lewisburg, whatever. But anyway, so I didn't have stamps to give to him. And I was an orderly out there. And they were selling wine from the slot in the shoe. And he said, man, Rob, I need the money. Now this is probably 6 months have gone by. And I said, yeah, I got you, bro. I've got it in the cell. I'll bring it right back. Didn't. I stung him. It was an intentional sting. When I got that wine, I went back to the cell. We cupped up. You know, it was what was there? It was so they're quarts apiece. I think there's there's 4 cups in a quart. We had the bigger cups. I cupped up, started working out on the tier again. I was the white orderly out there, and or the gang orderly, because they would take a member of each gang, I think, at the time. And I remember Capone, hey, Rob, you got that? And I said, yeah, I got you. And then eventually I had to go down that range. He was yelling, Rob, I need the stamps. I went back and I said, man, I got you. He says, well, what the fuck? And I said, no, I got you, Capone. And he looked at me, he's like, oh, hell no, man. What the fuck? And I said, man, it's for what happened back in the day. And he's like, fuck, Now, I paid him, but they were trying to hustle some stamps. Right then they needed them. I don't know if it was tobacco, weed, or whatever. So they weren't trying to come off of anything until they had the stamps. But he knew me, trusted me. Bad move, right? I can hear the comments here. Trusted me that I was going to go get the stamps, and I sold it to him. I said, I got you. I said, I got you. I got you. Like, meaning, I got you. I'll be right back. But I was literally saying, I got you. You know what I mean? That was my little comeback on that. Sure, I paid him, but oh, he was mad. Boy, he was mad that I did that. Sure was. It's just a little bit of, it's like this, and I tell people all the time. What's the D stand for? Dirty. Dirty. Dirty white boy. Dirty. Just saying. All right, third video I did today. I'm going to go ahead and just throw them all out there, and we'll see what happens later tonight. Take care. Thanks for watching.